One lazy day, I found myself watching a Twitch streamer who goes by the name Killer Tofu as he's playing a bit of Kaizo Mario. I forget how, but the topic of stream avatars is brought up, a program his friend Martyr's Corner uses when she takes quick breaks, which gives chat something to do in the meantime. However, Tofu found that stream avatars costs money, a struggle many of us can relate to, and free alternatives are either too sketchy to risk or run ads, neither of which were appealing options to him. Suddenly, I had an idea. I was stuck on a personal project because, despite having no visual artistic background of any kind, I decided to take on the Herculean task of learning how to make game-ready 3D models. It's a slow-going process with a lot of hurdles, to say the least. So I ask, why don't we make our own?
With blackjack and hookers!
Fast forward to today, and I'm about halfway to a presentable prototype. I've gotten the bare-bones Twitch integration to behave, a parser to interpret commands and post chat messages, and a very quick and brain-dead way to sanitize chat messages so users can't make everything wonky with HTML tags. The next step is the AI. I've spent about 2 days getting what you see to work, and the last week intermittently dealing with my insomniac exhaustion and studying and messing around with machine learning. The latter is more painful than the former, and I will explain why in a future video. I guess I should lay out what I intend to accomplish. This video series is intended to keep me accountable, as well as a place to upload my thoughts for future considerations and share what I've learned and done. The idea I hashed out with the help of Tofu was as follows. I wanted to make something inspired by stream avatars, but didn't want to overlap or compete too much with it. Essentially, I wanted to take the broad concept and make it my own. And the idea that Tofu suggested was to make something along the lines of Smash TV. Smash TV is an old arcade game with a simple premise. It's essentially Running Man in video game form. You go from room to room battling predetermined waves of enemies. Once the player has completed the room, they can choose a room to go to from the available adjacent rooms, where they repeat the process until they face the boss. As you can tell by the square room with 4 open doors on each wall, I was essentially working towards this idea, but sometime during my machine learning, I had an epiphany. Some time ago, I was addicted to the free online game called Space Station 13, especially the Colonial Marine server, and I was still occasionally returning to play. Inspired by the Alien franchise, the eponymous Marines would answer a distress beacon by some outpost or colony, and begin to investigate. Eventually, they'll discover and combat the xenomorphs from the movie. Depending on the command staff and the organization of the individual Marines, this can either lead to a horrific slaughter that leaves the Marine ship derelict, or a triumphant victory over the monsters, and any outcome in between. What specifically I wanted to pull from this was the large map design, and the need for the AI hunters to search for their opponents quickly, while the opposition slowly but unendingly increased in strength. While I am not opposed to including both in the final game, I did have to pick one for the near future to develop towards. They both have their benefits and drawbacks, and it's something I sat around thinking for a long while. The original Smash TV approach that I had in mind will have a procedurally generated approach, and the naturally segmented nature of the maps makes it very easy to scale and design for. Both of these qualities very much favor the streamer, allowing them to adjust how long the game should last, as well as other factors that might make it more fun for everyone. However, the nature of these arenas necessitate that I limit the number of players in an arena at once. Having 50 or so of these idiots walking around isn't a huge deal computationally, and would be rather easy to implement. The problem is, they won't be just walking, and it won't be just them. I'll naturally have to make an AI director that gives them an opposition that will keep the game close, meaning that if the chat's team has a lot of active players at once, the AI director will have to spawn just as many, if not more, enemy combatants. Flooding the arena with a lot of entities on screen simultaneously will both drag down performance as well as make it a visual nightmare, which is not what I want. On the other hand, the Colonial Marines approach will have a broad map, a lot of room for a lot of players and enemies to duke it out, and plenty of room to cull visual elements and optimize gameplay so that it won't bog down the streamer's computer too much. Having static elements, as in elements that will never move, means that I can bake light maps that will allow for a lot of flexibility when creating visually interesting design while avoiding taxing the streamer's computer to a significant degree. It will also allow me to implement NavMesh agents, Unity's in-house method of pathfinding and getting around, which will make hard-coding AI much easier if I decide to implement it to any degree. Since now I can just point to where I want the AI to go and the NavMesh agent will do the rest. However, scaling in this case is almost not an option. I'll likely have to make multiple maps of different sizes to make sure the streamer has a map both suitable for their audience and the length of time they want the game to go. For instance, a huge map will probably suck for a modestly sized audience since they won't be able to search and clear efficiently. which will make hunting the opposition much more tedious. Similarly, a streamer with a large audience will have a frustrating time cramming all of chat into a tiny map, and will probably suffer the same problem as a Smash TV room with too many players. In the end, as much as I liked both ideas, I went with the Smash TV approach. In addition to being the design I initially planned for, the scalability and flexibility for small segmented rooms makes it much easier to balance and design for. While I do want to do something with the Colonial Marines inspired design, I have to veto some ideas, or at least table them for future consideration. But now I have an objective to strive for, and thus concludes the initial primer for my project. I'd ask for your opinions, but this is the first video for this channel, and considering that my Twitch doesn't get more than one viewer per stream, it would feel like a rather futile gesture. Still, if you aren't imaginary, I would appreciate your thoughts, comments, critiques, and suggestions. I'll try to force myself to post more, even if it's only to ensure that progress reports happen at all, but it's nice to know that someone else watched it all the way through. I'll see you all next time, even if you all are my imaginary friends.